Today, as we come to another lesson from Luke, that we've been reading from Luke for a while, but I want to refresh your memory about last week. So today, this text is very famous, overread, over-translated, overtaken in many ways. So I'm not preaching this. I'm sure even if you do not remember many biblical, this is the one that I'm sure you heard. And the most famous one, do to others the things that you want to do to yourself. Even if we misquote it, but we know the concept. It's become a culturally known all over. So, but we don't want to miss really how to understand that, not because it's become a famous culturally, but how to understand it as part of our faith as Christian. So I want to refresh your memory about what we talked last week. Last week was a version of the Beatitudes, but in Luke. We know the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount are very famous because of Matthew. But Luke also addressed the Beatitudes in a different way. So Luke repeated what we know as the Sermon on the Mount was a different taste, where he said, bless those, and he woos the others, warning the others one. And we talked about like Christ is taking one side team and telling the other team, you are the bad guys. But I hope you remember that last week was actually, if he sound like he's embracing the poor, the one that's suffering, the weeping, and all the one that's really on the unpleasant side. Nobody want to be a crying child. Nobody want to be a needy in all aspects, physically and spiritually. But those who are kind of like persecuted by the community because the community saw them, your needs, your problems, because of you, or because of your family, or your great father or mother. So, and as we see that Christ is fighting for, no, you are not bad, you are actually good, bless you and bless you and bless you, okay? So the story ended up with just telling those who are crying, and he's like hugging them and say, no, you are not bad, you are actually good, and keep doing what you are doing, and I'm telling you. And then the person that's crying should feel happy, right? It's like, yeah, this guy took my side, you know? Christ is on my team, which means he's going to play against this bad team and will defeat them. But actually, in this text, you have to connect what he's saying today to the one from last week. If you think you won the prize, the medal, lucky you because Christ is taking your side, wait a minute. Christ has a bad news for you. So how many times we get excited because Christ is on my side? Yes, I am poor. I am sad. I went through unfairness in my life, injustice and all of this. So Christ is on my side. While Christ is tapping on your shoulders and saying, my child, my son and my daughter, at the same time say, the first thing that started in this text, which is very powerful, but to you who are listening, we listen when we like what we hear, right? We like good news, you know? You want something, you know? Somebody's telling you, you are right. You've been on the right path and everybody else is wrong and they are on the wrong path. What God has started is in a powerful way when Luke say, but to who are listening, is saying, are you still there? You got what you want? You are happy to hear that God has blessed you because of all the things that people see it as actually as a curse, but the good news, it's not actually a curse, it's a blessing. But then say, keep listening because I have something else to you. If I give you the power of love, if I give you the power of forgiveness, if I give you the power that change you the way you look and see things. So the same powers that you cannot just keep it for yourself. The same power that turned you from being pathetic and feeling lonely and feeling just worthless is somebody else's turn to say, no, actually, life is not that bad. Actually, I have good things in life. Actually, it's not all darkness. There is some light, even if it's a dim light. So the same power that resurrects your soul from death It's not just for you to walk around and just praising yourself and making so special you are because you are the only one resurrected from death and everybody else is bad because they didn't have the miracle like you. But God is saying the true miracle that transforms you, then it will go through you to others. If you are really listening, and I know there is a lot of debate and social justice issue and psychological problems in this text, and this Christ is really creating unhealthy situation when he talks about just also kind of like giving an access to the abuser or acceptance to all the abuse that we have in this life. If you just take one side and one sentence and run away, I think we are in danger. A lot of people who work in the psychology field will not be happy with some of these texts. When they are right, if you just take one sentence, if you take one piece, but really it's the whole package about somebody want to follow this guy. And when you look at that, say, the transformation that happens to you, simply you were one day sinner. Simply you were full of stains and dirt and just really merged in all mud. And somebody came and picked you up and washed you and make you see how different it is to be surrounded by mud and dirt and feel fresh. And he starts saying that, then if you believe in that, this is my new kingdom. We work so hard because we're trying to be a Christian as to-do list. How many of us learn to-do list, right? We have everything: daily do list, hourly do list, weekly do list, monthly and yearly. It's a good way to be organized, you know? But what about when things do not go according to to-do list? When we feel defeated and feel like everything I looked on the fridge and say I was supposed to do, it feels like failing. This is not a good thing. But what if we try, instead of doing, into being? And just being in the moment, living. How many times we organize and plan, and all of this are very good, and we have to. It's not an option in the DNA we live in, this age that we live in. But the other way is like, because you are working so hard on the outside. You're working so hard to smile because Christ told me I have to be gentle and smile to people who really hurt me. But inside me, I'm full of anger and I wish I can open what's inside me. So you see the difference between to do and to be. Christ is, we are so worried about this customer service Christian way. But Christ is care about you if you really clean the source. If you have an access to God that who cleaned you at the beginning, he can clean you every day. And do not let the stain and dirt stay in the way. God gave you excuse when he forgave you. God looked upon you with mercy. And we do not deserve it. We do not deserve God's grace. We were fully sinners, full of bad things. And simply, God see what we cannot see. God see this little baby inside us, you know. God see this kindness inside of our brudeness. God see this gentleness in the middle of we are crying and screaming like wounding animals. We do not even see that in our own selves. We could not imagine ourselves to be this way. But when you let God wash you and take care of you, then the source that's inside you. So you may well get angry. You may well not behave even in 10% according. This is a very tough list. I think most Christians will fail if we look at this list and how many times we fail to follow that. But the problem is not failing. It's not sometimes the normal way anger trigger anger. And hateful ways trigger more hateful ways. So all these things, but Christ is offering a different ways. You may react as human in the immediate response, not in a good way. But if your heart is a Christian heart, you go back and check yourself to know how you should go back and behave better. This is not about a wife or a husband in an unhealthy relationship and the other is abusing them, and Christ is saying you have to accept them because you are a good Christian. But Christ is giving a different way of saying, what did you get out of anger equal anger? Hateful actions and hateful words compared to hateful words and hateful actions. What did you get out of that? And Christ is saying, maybe there is a new way. There is a new way to do that. There is a new way to try to turn things around. There is a new way to know that your journey of pain can be ended and closed, not by creating more wounded people, but knowing that what's making you angry, who's really and why is pushing the soft, gentle spots on your skin, and why we react this way. And one of my favorite books is about wounded healers. That's written by Henry Nouwen. He's a great philosopher and theologian. But actually, to be academically correct, the wounded healer term was invented by a Swiss psychologist, Carl Jung, who created that. And his whole point as a psychologist was he was imagining us sitting in the room and somebody's telling them about all the troubles in his life. And all the things in all of these careers is how to be a good professional, right? You listen, you're very careful, you keep every personal thing out of your business, right? You listen to them, this is not your problem, you listen to them and give them the advice to make their life better. That's the basic. So Carl Jung, this very smart Swiss psychologist, who was wondering about what happened inside the people who was listening. We are all the time talking about those who are looking for counseling, but what happened to the counselor? What's going inside them? And if they are all the time trying to be very professional and do not cross the line, he wondered about, are they truly listening? What if somebody's talking about their children and the counselor has the same situation with their children or their wives or whatever? And he was talking about that many times under the word professional, we actually try to have a fake relationship. Because I want to be the good pastor, I don't want to act like I have a soft skin under when somebody says something. But this idea of wounded healer is actually say that invite the common ground. And instead of acting like you are as a counselor or a pastor or somebody in a healthier situation, that you are higher than the people you are listening to, remember that everything they are saying to you will touch something in your life. Maybe touch wounds. Some of wounds are not fresh, but most wounds leave scars in our life. So while we are hearing to somebody fresh wounds, and we know it's their story, it's their wife, it's their children, that's what they taught us all. That's how we protect ourselves. When I went to the hospital and I saw all these terrible things, that was the technique that I have to protect myself. You know, the child that's dying in the hospital bed is not my child. And one side is protecting me, but on the other side is isolating me. So he was inventing this term about really, we need to be honest and know and use that, and instead of disconnecting, to connect us as a human being. To know that I know some of your suffering because I've been there. But your story is different from my story. Your wounds in a different stage from my wounds. Your wounds may be very fresh, very painful. Maybe your wounds, even an open wounds that's still bleeding. Mine, maybe when I look at my hand and I see the scar, but I'm in a different stage. I get part of your feeling. And this is the kind of Christian community that Christ is inviting. And as Henry Nouwen talked about that, and this is a wonderful book that I recommend to all of you who like to read, is The Wounded Healer by Henry Nouwen. He's just using that as in a psychological and a spiritual support to help us to understand how to understand the theology of the cross. When you look at all of these things, when he starts to talk about those who are going to do bad things to you and you are doing good things, you are bringing people close and they are running away from you. You are saying good things and they are saying bad things about you. They are even betraying you. He's actually talking about his own self. Before you looked at as in overwhelming commands from God to all of us, this is summary of the guy that you are happy he's on your team. You are praising him because he's the guy playing on your team. Wait until to see what's going to happen in his life. This is exactly, if you go to all of the details, this is what happened in Christ's life. And say, Christ, while I'm tapping on my shoulder, my children, lucky you are on my team, but do not run away when life is not fair to you. Do not run away when life is not treating you well. You are doing that simply because you love me, and you will not give up on being the way I am because you are my child. Amen? And now it's time for the prayers.